Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Sharai Bohannon. Sharai, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing so much better now. It is so nice to finally make this happen. It's something I've been hoping to happen for a long time, and we were finally able to get in contact with each other to make this happen. So, for those of you that don't know Sharai, I want to fill you in a little bit about her first before we get into the reason why we're here. Sharai is a writer, podcaster, content creator, film and pop critic for various online magazines, including the Every Girl, Dread Central, and her own Medium page. She also created and co-hosted the podcast A Nightmare on Fear Street, which is how I first found out about you, Sharai. And what I love about this is you guys on there, you tackle horror films through a Black feminist lens, which is something that me and you were talking before we actually got started rolling here, and horror has had great messaging since the beginning of time. So before we move any further, what finally gave you the kick in the pants to get the podcast started?
I think it's just the pandemic because we were all just sort of stuck. Like 2020 started out as our year, and then it said, everything I gave you, I'm taking back. And so we were all sort of left to be like, how do we keep ourselves from going just like up the walls? And
Right.
Me and my friend, he's in Arkansas and I was in Indiana at the time, we were like, we've always watched horror movies together when we were in undergrad. We've always drank. What if we did it on Zoom? What if we put it on Anchor? And it became really fun and healing. And apparently a lot of other people out there had felt the same way I felt, but we never get to like meet up, obviously.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's just been really good to be like, I like this movie, but also this movie has a Black people problem, and I'm going to talk about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's funny because I always push people in that direction when talking. Like we just did on the channel, we did an episode on Get Out, and I talked about how, as a straight white man, it's easy for me to talk about how this movie affected me. But if you want something deeper than that, you should really go into that community. If we're doing a Didn't See That Coming about how the twist affected us. If you want real story and real depth, you should go listen to A Nightmare on Fear Street. You should listen to what, people like you have to say, because you're going to have a lot more in touch with something like that, where I'm not going to. I can be entertained by a film, but I'd be lying if I said I've felt the way he felt when he was sitting on that couch.
Yeah.
Like, these are just things that I can't feel, and I can't describe to you the feeling I have. And amazing people like Sharai can do that for you. But not only can they do that with A Nightmare on Fear Street, but you are also one of 3 hosts of the Blurry Massacre, where you apply your lens of blurred culture. And you also do a rotating guest spot on the Alter Tapes. And you currently reside in Minneapolis, Minnesota, home of the Vikings. So with these things, obviously you do a lot, whether it's writing, podcasting, content creating. How do you find time to be able to juggle all these amazing, because everything you touch turns to gold, Sharai. So how do you find the time to juggle all these things that you want to do and do them so well?
I think it's all, first off, it's all fun. And so like, that is how I just live my life. I think that we're all too old to be miserable. And so I don't want to do it if it's not fun. And if it's fun, I'll make time for it. And I will like get together with my friends and we just like have these conversations organically. Like I don't do a whole lot of hard hitting research for things because I'm coming at it with my own lens. So like it helps. I mean, a podcast is still a part-time job. So each one is 15, 20 hours a week, but still. And I also get to sort of pick and choose a little bit what I want to write about for Dread. I mean, there's always like, hey, these things are happening. And if I'm not feeling inspired, I could be like, tap in. But for the most part, I get to be like, I want to write about himbos today.
Right.
Or I want to write about Black girl rage. Both are equally important.
I feel like you probably want to write more about Black girl rage right when you wake up. Like, I know what I want to write about right now.
It depends on the day, because sometimes I will be watching a movie and I will be like, this is really happening in 2022. Are we still doing this? And that's a moment. Sometimes I'll be watching a movie like, this is delightful. What are some other delightful movies I want to share with people? Like I wish I had a system to my madness. But I just sort of go where the wind blows. Juggling is hard. I think it's hard for all of us. But if we like what we do and we don't, it's hard to be stressed when you're enjoying what you do. When you're not enjoying it, you probably need to take a step back. Yeah.
Well, and I just feel like everything that you do, you are so genuine, and it's always the same Sharai. And that was something that also really connected me to want to work with you, because I feel like you're one of those people that you do all these things for the right reasons. You do it for your love of the genre. You do it because you've always been a lifelong horror fan. And obviously as a Midwesterner, I love you to death already. I see him and go, hey, how you doing?
right? No, I feel like when we were kids, there were so few of us who actually enjoyed horror. It was just like, what is that? That's weird. Stop it. We're getting into the Backstreet Boys. And it's like, no, no. My Chemical Romance is right here. Gerard Way will eventually give us the Umbrella Academy.
Right.
So we were winning. But I think that we all just have to sort of figure out that life is too short to be anybody else. And so when you figure out your opinion actually matters and has some weight, like why should anybody else's?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that because when I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. No, I was
he said,
told
son, when you grow up.
Right. Will you be? Go William Shatner with it. No, and it's just one of these things where I agree. I was blessed as a child, and people that are repeat viewers here know I grew up in a video store. My mom and dad owned a mom and pop video store growing up called Downtown Video. And so like my job every week as a young little Ken was whenever people would return their videos, if they weren't kind enough to rewind, we didn't have a VCR in there. We had a VCR rewinder. So all I would do is I would push it in, push the button down, rewind it, take it and put it on the shelf. And if I did that every Friday, I got to take home a movie and then a Nintendo cartridge to play at home. So at a young age, I really fell in love with horror. And I try to explain people, and this is not me being an old man yelling at clouds thing here, guys. You can't help how old you are or when you were born. But, you know, at my age, I still feel like I'm probably a little bit older than you, Sharai. But with my YouTube, and I know you knew video stores too, but our YouTube back in the day was walking up and down the aisle, looking at the cases, trying to figure out which one we would, that, you know, the cover art was all we had. That was our YouTube. So to hear that there's somebody out there that I look up to, that I've been wanting to work with, that went through the same things that I did growing up, loving horror, loving My Chemical Romance, you know, the punk rock scene, you know, power pop, whatever you want to call it. It's really cool to me to know that there are people out there that I've worked with, and now that I'm working with, now that I've looked up to, and I've been able to listen and really accept and understand and respect your opinion. So I just, again, want to say thank you so much for being willing to come on here, because you are an influence on a lot of people. So to learn how horror started for you is not just special to me, but I guarantee you it's special to a lot of people out there to look up to you and respect your opinion so much.
Thank you so much. I need to come to the channel more often. Like, this is
I'm telling you, it is an open invite. Anytime, I would be honored to have you, and I will kiss your butt every single time you're here. So I do also want to say, for those of you, if you have not been fortunate enough to follow Sharai and all the amazing things that she does, you don't have to go far, guys, because I got all those links right down here in the description. So make sure that you're giving her a follow on social media. Make sure that you're checking out the podcast, subscribing to the podcast. You're not going to do it for me or her. You're going to do it for yourself, and you're going to be kicking yourself in the butt that it took you this long to find it. But you know what? You're there now, and that's all that matters. So Sharai, we know what you got going on now and in the future. But here for a couple seconds, I want to take it back to the past and talk about how horror started for you, your first horror movie. And guys, we are almost at episode 350. And I have never got to talk about this movie on the podcast yet. So I am giddy with excitement right now. So Sharai, your first horror movie was?
The first horror movie that actually scared me was When a Stranger Calls, 1979. Because again, I was always watching stuff, and I was just not aware that, oh, scary movies could actually be scary. Because I had fun with Michael, I had fun with Freddie, but this one I was like, oh, it's a scary movie, and it was like, look, little girl, this is what a scary movie can do for you. And I was like, right. Oh, just playing. I'm so sorry.
What I love about that is you're like, I had fun with Michael, I had fun with Freddie, and all I seen in my head was that meme of all the people skipping on the beach, and like you holding hands with Michael and Freddie skipping down the beach. Like that's just what popped in my head.
Freddy Krueger was my first imaginary friend as a child, because he was that present.
Imaginary. He was my first imaginary friend. And then when I got out of juvie at 16, I started to move on to other things after that.
Michael, and we had a lot in common.
Oh, that's so awesome, man. So I do want to say, When a Stranger Calls, this movie really started something, you know, obviously, that's been followed up in Black Christmas. Mm-hmm. It's been followed up in all these amazing horror movies. And something you and I talked about, and I knew that we were going to have a good rapport with each other, is we talked about how you have When a Stranger Calls, you have Black Christmas, and with these two films, you have two of the most underrated final girls of all time. And it was at that moment Ken knew he did not fuck up. He made the right choice by bringing you on here, because we were going to think the same about a lot of different things. So, do you remember about how old you were the first time that you had seen When a Stranger Calls?
It had to be like around 7 or 8, because again, I had a couple of years of like, ha ha, slashers, ha ha, haunted houses. And I did not know scary movies were supposed to be scary, because I was living my best life. I was giggling, eating my like fruit snacks. And then this movie was like, guess what? Right. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna put this by the foot down and turn the light on. Like
the poster literally talks about how the first 15 minutes of this film will change your life.
The first 21 minutes of this movie is the best 21 minutes of a movie. And I love a lot of movies. Obviously, I have 3 podcasts. Right. The first 21 minutes, I can't touch it. Nobody else can touch it. The things they do to us. Because even as a kid, like I knew she was in danger. I knew the danger was in the house. But the way it unfolds and the way it releases and the hoops that he puts her through, it's magic. And I aspire to someday have that in my own writing.
Well, I mean, you have one of the most iconic lines in horror that people don't even see in this movie know.
Have you checked the children?
Yeah.
We've traced the call. It's coming from inside the house. A squad car's on the way over there right now.
Those 2 lines specifically haunt everybody. And I live like their podcast, and their podcast named after them. I also just love that we have so many kids who watch Scream, but they don't know When a Stranger Calls, which is definitely in that DNA for that Drew Barrymore moment, and then the rest of the phone calls that have made this franchise. We owe so much. We owe so much to Carol Kane.
Oh, for sure. Well, and a lot of this movie is, like I said, we talk about the first 21 minutes, but it has the big build, obviously, in the first, act. Yeah. But it doesn't slow down much after that. So, do you remember who it was that introduced you to this film, who you watched it with for the first time?
It had to have been my mom. Like, she was always recording stuff. VCR era. She was always recording stuff, and so I never knew what year was actually what year. Like, because I was a 90s kid, but I watched so many 70s and 80s horror movies. I was like, I don't know what's actually new. I don't know what is not. And so I would pop on a VHS and be like, what's this one? And it's one of my favorite finds. Like, I think that and Pumpkinhead are the 2 that I definitely have to like give her credit for. Everything else, her, one of my brothers, me, I don't know, but those 2 are definitely her. Yeah.
Well, and what polar opposites with this and Pumpkinhead? And I'm learning that, as a kid, the 2 movies I talk about the most that I didn't even realize were huge horror movies, because nobody in my area ever talked about them, were Pumpkinhead and House from 1986, which was my first horror movie. That's my favorite horror movie. And the older I've gotten, the more I've realized these movies have a huge cult following. And as a kid, I was like, man, nobody's ever heard of these movies. And it was always this thing, like, where people would come over to my house and have like sleepovers. I'd be like, well, I got this movie you guys got to watch. We'd always throw on House, like that was my number one. And like, to hear, just not like hearing you drop Pumpkinhead gave me that, ooh, like, it gets me excited to know that other people were watching these movies and being affected by these movies at a young age. Like, that's so rad for me to hear all the time.
I almost wear my Pumpkinhead t-shirt, but I decided to wear my Girl That's Scary t-shirt because it's new and I hadn't worn it yet. But I have like the Pumpkinhead t-shirt where he's purple and he's got his claw coming out over his logo. Oh, yeah. And it's one of my favorite shirts because I've waited so long to have Pumpkinhead merch. I've waited my whole life. So yeah.
It's amazing how that works. These things that we looked for as a kid, I'm looking for WWF wrestling toys, and then I'm looking for Michael Myers after he'd been shot by Dr. Loomis. I want Mikey on the ground, Mikey. That's what I want. All my other friends are playing with G.I. Joes. I want dead Michaels. Like, what the hell is going on here?
The fact that I never got to be Ghostface for Halloween as a child is one of the many things that I regret about my childhood, because I asked every year.
I just imagine you calling your mom now, like, Mom, I need you to understand what being Ghostface would have meant to me.
Listen, listen, who knows who I would have been? I would have been to Yale. I don't know.
Whole life would have been completely different had you gotten the chance. You would have totally been a Stu Ghostface too, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, I would have. Matthew Lillard, that's my energy. Like, Billy's too devious. Matthew just wants to have fun and stab people. Yeah.
Right. I mean, what the Bible was really written about, right? Just have fun and stab people. That's all you got to do. Okay. I mean,
that was the 8th day, and they took it back. Like,
it's just like Mel Brooks' History of the World, when he's got the 15 commandments. He's like, 15 commandments, get your 10 commandments, get your 10 commandments. Like, that was one of the 15 commandments. Thou shalt stab and be happy.
Listen.
And then in little God parentheses, I'm feeling woozy here. So I do, again, we talked a little bit about When a Stranger Calls, and obviously the two big iconic moments in the film, whether it's the have you checked the children, or at the end when you get the calls, they're coming from inside the house. But besides that, what scene would you say affected you the most?
Ooh, I would definitely say it's when she almost goes upstairs and the phone rings, because she almost bought her ticket right then and there. And it always unnerves me, because I'm just like, you were so close to getting stabbed, and you don't even know it. You don't know it until like the end when you're trying to like rent in the house. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing how we got these. This movie is a master on how to build suspense.
Yes.
You know, building suspense it really is a true art form on how to truly build suspense. And we talk about horror and how horror comedies work so well, and I think that's because it takes timing to do both of these things. You have to have impeccable timing to do comedy. You have to have impeccable timing to make a horror film. So, and this movie is a masterclass on how suspense should be built. When you talk about timing, this isn't something where it's just jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. This is a masterclass on the big payoff once you've built up your suspense. So we know which scene, Sharai, affected you the most, but what would you say your favorite scene from When a Stranger Calls is?
Oh my God. I mean, obviously it's when they call her and they're just like, the conscript's at the house, and she's like trying to scramble and the door is opening and she's watching it, and you're like, oh no, I knew he was gonna get her. And then you like freeze on the cop and you're like, did he get her? Did he not get her for a second? Because again, it's 21 minutes. You're like, there's a whole movie here. What just happened? Like this first 21 minutes could have been the perfect short. It's almost burlesque how like they keep teasing you and then they let you go for a minute and they tease you and the release. I live for it. I just watched it again today because I was like, what if it's not as fresh as it was last week? So yeah.
That's even better. What if it's not as fresh now as it was? What if I missed something in the last 187 viewings that I'll get in the 188? Yeah, I threw out 187 there on purpose, guys, because that's what this movie's all about. So one thing that we need to discuss real quick, Sharai, and I'm sorry that I have to do this to you. Unfortunately, When a Stranger Calls has a remake. Now, something I like to talk about on here is, would you like to see your first horror movie remade? Now, we've already had that with When a Stranger Calls. So let me ask you this instead. Instead of asking you, would you like to see your first horror movie remade today? I'm going to ask you this. Would you like to see your first horror movie remade well today?
I would love that, because the fact that I saw that remake in theaters, I saw it with friends. I actually saw it with my co-host Trent, because we were in college together, and I was like, "Oh my God, the original was great." He's like, "I never saw it," and he still has it. We're gonna fix it next season. It's fine. But like, we went to see this remake, and I was like, "This is not my movie. This is not my movie. Why is this happening to me?" I felt victimized. I was very upset. And I think it's part of why I have a resentment towards remakes. Like I have an unchecked bias. When say my parents are remaking something, I'm like, no, stop.
Right.
And it's because that movie.
It's just funny you say that, because I got a really good friend, and his life is American Werewolf in London. And I don't know if you remember, but American Werewolf in Paris was released on Christmas Day. And I just remember hearing, it ruined my fucking Christmas, bro. Like, it ruined my day. Like, Santa could have came and shit under my tree and it wouldn't have hurt as bad as going to watch American Werewolf in Paris.
As a kid, I had this like big crush on Tom Everett Scott. And so when I was like, he's doing a werewolf movie, yeah, because I'm a kid. I don't know sequels can be bad. And that's what cleared that crush. After that, he was a free man. I was like, you know what? I don't even like that thing you do anymore. It wasn't even that great. I was just a kid. I didn't know any better. Look.
Yeah. You doing that thing you do, you were breaking my heart into a million pieces, you son of a bitch. So no, I get that too. And it's funny because like I'm not like anti-remake, and here's why. I think that a remake can be done exceptionally well. I'm looking at you, Evil Dead 2013. I'm looking at you, Child's Play 2019. I think if you take a remake, Oh, the new Slumber Party Massacre was so good.
Listen,
so good.
It was my first review at Dread's Intro, and I was not expecting to give it 5 stars because the original trilogy, like, we have a fond place for it, however we feel about it. But I was like, it's gonna be fun and cute, and I was like, this is the remake we always needed. And so I'm happy Stranger Things didn't ruin it for me.
You and I could do a whole episode on the Slumber Party remake because I think like there's so much about it. It's got great nods to the original. It's got genuine good comedy. It's got amazing ladies at the forefront that were rocking this out. I mean, there were moments in this movie where I was sitting, you know, me and my wife were watching it sitting on the couch, and there were moments where we genuinely had to pause it because I was laughing so hard. You know, like when they're talking about the radiator hose, and he's like, well, I could have you one tomorrow. And the girl's like, how about now? He's like, don't see how that's going to help me get it any faster. Like it's just genuine good comedy. Or at the beginning when the one guy is staring in at him through the window, and then you see the other guy and he's like, oh, you fucking pervert. Like it's just like perfect.
Guy 1 and Guy 2, that whole bit, I laughed
so
like
good.
I've never heard that kind of bit before in my life every time.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up because I agree. I think that what I love about these 3 remakes that we just mentioned, Evil Dead 2013, Child's Play 2019, and then Slumber Party Massacre 2022, I believe it was. Or was it? It was, yeah. 2021, okay.
Yeah.
They took the skin and bones of the original, but they filled it with their own organs. They made it their own film. Where I was going with this is even if you get a bad remake, I'm looking at you, Nightmare on Elm Street, which I've grown to like, but it's still not perfect.
I mean, different.
I just think that if you get a bad remake, it can still, like, I mean, even not just a remake, but a prequel or a sequel or a requel. Look at what the sales of Halloween 78 did when Halloween 2018 came out. These people that are younger, they may have never heard of Halloween or have never heard of Evil Dead, Child's Play. When they see this remake, they go back and they watch that original again. So there is this silver lining to me where even if you have a bad remake, it can take people that have never seen the original and how great it is and rewind them back to that. And they can go and revisit this for the first time. I got to sit with somebody and watch The Exorcist for the first time in preparation of the remake coming out. And I was both jealous and sad. Jealous that I'm watching this person watch it for the first time and getting those emotions again. But I'm so sad that they had to wait this long. I still think it's the scariest movie ever made.
I saw it the first time last year because we did it for the podcast. Because I kept putting it off. Like, you know what? It's Halloween. Let's do it. And I was like, oh, with a crucifix reading? That's, yeah.
I just love that. I wish that I could, you know what? I need, when I die and God goes, you are all right. I'm going to give you one wish. What's your one wish? I'm going to say, God, I want to be able to watch every horror movie I've ever watched in my life again and be able to insert Sharai at certain parts to get her reaction live during the movie. So that way, when these things are happening, I could literally see it happening and you in the corner like, a crucifix? You serious? We got all this shit. You're using a crucifix? Lord, you let him watch this right now? So like I have you inserted into every horror movie I've ever watched just to make it that much better for me. So you're going to be busy in the afterlife, Sharai. Now, we've talked about When a Stranger Calls, Sharai, and what this movie means to you and how much it affected you. But now I do want to kind of throw you a little bit of a curveball here for a second. My buddy Ghostface is here and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Sharai? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
This is hard. It changes like every hour right now because we are definitely in the week of Wes Craven's birthday and I'm in my nostalgia feels. I'm gonna say Nightmare on Elm Street, even though again it changes every hour. But it's definitely one of the movies that made me. Like Freddy Krueger was my imaginary child, so like somewhere in there, he's a fave. He's a fave.
I mean, I've said this numerous times, and I'm sorry for repeat viewers, but I think that there's only been one perfect movie ever made, and that's Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That's the only perfect movie that will ever exist in my eyes. When it comes to horror, the closest thing you can possibly get to a perfect horror movie, in my opinion, is the original Nightmare on Elm Street. You take out the last 5 minutes of that dumb blow-up doll getting sucked through the window and that stupid fucking Freddy car. I think it's the perfect movie. If you end this movie with the mom on fire on the bed, you know, don't even have her sinking down, waving goodbye, because that's dumb as hell too. But like, you know, you end it right there. Perfect horror movie. Perfect horror movie.
again, I don't know how old I was when I saw this movie, but the image of Freddy in the alley with the arms outstretched coming for Tina, that is the Freddy I always go to first. And then I go to Freddy doing petty things because petty Freddy stays busy. But if you say Freddy Krueger, that's my first image. And then I'm like, oh, but also
I need to get that on a t-shirt.
like I live for petty Freddy. I think he taught me how to put together insults. I look really. He was amazing.
I just need a shirt that says, thank you, Petty Freddy, and on the back they welcome to primetime, bitch.
Welcome to prime time, bitch.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
So, Sharai, I seriously have had an amazing time with you, and getting to know you has been super awesome for me. And I wish you absolutely nothing but the most success in the future with everything that you do. But before I let you go, we always go back to the same question to end this off. We're going to go back to When a Stranger Calls, and what we're going to do is rank this on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking this, Sharai, on acting, production, score, originality, nothing like that. What we're doing here is we're strictly ranking this movie on how much it affected you on first viewing. And I think I know the answer, but according to my script, I have to ask this question before I let you go. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Sharai, what would your ranking of When a Stranger Calls be?
I'm gonna give it the full 5 because again, that first 21 minutes is perfect. I have no notes. And like we hit some places in the middle and it's kind of a procedural cop situation in the middle, but we're still trying to do it. And then at the end, it's like, we're gonna stick the landing though. Guess what? That whole moment where she's like, he's in the closet, but he's next to her, and then like the screaming, and I'm just like, what is happening? And so you are reawakened. I think that 25 minutes up top and that ending are some of the best I will ever see with my own eyeballs in horror. Yeah.
She says, I love the bread. The meat, however.
Yeah.
But
this is
no.
the one time I'm vegetarian. Look.
See? It all started with When a Stranger Calls.
It is.
So it is amazing because I don't think, like I said, besides Pee-wee's Big Adventure, I don't think I could ever possibly give anything a perfect rating. While House is my favorite horror movie, Back to the Future is probably my favorite movie of all time. But I can't tell you how many movies have 5 skull affected me, even as new as The Dark and the Wicked. That movie really, it was like 3 PM, and I was like, hey, Ash, if you want to open those blinds, you can. I mean, if you want to, it's fine.
I made the mistake
It
trying to
won't
start
bother
it.
me.
I made the try started like 3 AM and then the goats came out and like, no. And I stopped it and I came back for the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another movie I can't recommend enough for people. When people ask me like, hey, what's a new horror movie that you really love? My 3 go-tos right now are always Slumber Party remake, The Black Phone, and The Dark and the Wicked. Those are the 3 that I've seen recently that you didn't like it?
I gotta see it. I still have to see it. I don't know what my 3 would be. I mean, I don't know what my 3 would be this year actually. Cause like this year, I mean, clearly Scream 5. Done. I'm sure I'm gonna love Nope, but I haven't seen it yet, so I don't want to jinx it and put it in there. But like, odds are in my favor. I don't know.
I just hope that you can go into Nope not spoiled. Is my hope for you. Like,
I'm so lucky so far. Like, somebody ruined the main situation because they're like, everybody saw the trailer. Like, I did not. I purposely muted it. I purposely avoided it.
To be fair, the trailer does not give anything away. In comparison to what the major story arc is, the trailer gives nothing away. And I knew it wouldn't, but I'm with you. Like, just like Pearl, I watched the first trailer of Nope and then went blind. With Pearl, I watched that first trailer. That's all I need. I'm not watching any more trailers. I don't want to know anything else. I'm just ready to watch this young lady act her ass off in this film.
No, we saw X and we knew we were going to show up for Pearl. However we felt about X, we were like, I'm coming back. It's fine. It's done. Thanks, Mr. West.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people were like 5 for X, and I was like 4.5, and they're like, and I was like, it's fine. A 4 is good. A 4 is fine. It means
if I got a 4 out of 5 on every one of the tests I ever took, I wouldn't be here right now because I'd have 80%.
I would be at Yale. Like,
right.
That in Ghostface.
Yeah. But see, and I did like X a lot, but I'm with you. Like, for me, and I know this sounds silly because I'm a horror fan and I grew up with slashers, when it comes to watching film, I'm not an overly sexualized person. So a lot of that was, and I was watching it with my wife and our best friend, who's also female. We were like, hey, you should meet up with us and watch this movie. Not, because we went in blind, and we're watching it. I was like, this is not asking for anything. I swear, we're not hinting at anything right now. We just, there's a better chance of you killing me than anything else, I promise. So, I am a big fan of The Black Phone. I think that it was very well acted, and what I love about The Black Phone is it was held together by the kids. The kids really put this movie on their back. They carried the weight of the movie on their back. Obviously, Ethan Hawke is Ethan Hawke. He's great, but the kids is where the movie was really sold for me. And if you get the chance, once you see The Black Phone and Nope, text me. I would love to get your opinions on these films.
Definitely, because like they are both like the two I have to see. I almost broke down and went ahead and paid for Black Phone, but I'm like, I'm trying to catch her cheaper if I just wait. Because like I got fooled because I wanted to see Scream 5 again because we're gonna do like a little special episode because like obviously we're West Craven podcast. And so like I rented it to get like a refresher, and then like the next week Paramount Plus was like, haha, bitch. And I was like, and so now I'm like, I don't give anybody anything anymore. We're gonna wait. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, just your personal opinion before I let you go, because now I'm really, really curious. I wanted to ask you this. Obviously, you guys are Wes Craven themed on your podcast. Your opinions on The People Under the Stairs.
I have such a complicated relationship because as a child, I needed it. I was like, oh my God, I see another Black kid and they're living and thriving. But as an adult, I'm just like, I see what Wes wanted to do, but I also wonder if this would have better been served had he brought in some Black people to help him navigate it and write it and direct it a little bit. But that is why we talk about things and we hopefully learn from them. I don't know.
That's my wife's favorite horror movie of all time. Like that, Mom and Dad scared my wife so bad as a kid, brother, sister, mom, dad, whatever you want to call them.
Listen, we did an episode on that last year because I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, and I was like, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna do it, and I was like, that is disgusting. I don't think that really landed with me as a child that they were siblings, because I was like, they're just weird, they're kooky, they're eccentric, they're in the suburbs. What's always gives me weird people in the suburbs. I'm not, but as an adult, I'm like, no.
And like the scene for me is like when Daddy is behind her and he starts grabbing himself when he's in that bondage suit, like, and you know that nothing positive can happen at that moment.
Kids today don't understand how kids from the 90s saw so many people in bondage suits and we just had to go along with it without asking questions.
Right. Between this, Hellraiser, we were like, yeah, that's fine.
Right?
I was running around with an apple in my mouth and I was with two Velcro sticks. Like, look at me, Mom. I'm the people under the stairs.
I watched Pulp Fiction as a kid and I didn't understand that like I shouldn't be like, oh yeah, that movie about the gimp. And they were like, nobody was like, stop this child. What have we done? We need to explain.
Right.
I know things.
So, what do you think about the fact that Jordan Peele has signed on to produce a remake of The People Under the Stairs?
I want it in my eyeballs immediately. Monkey Paw, and especially when he's helming something, they do the things. They know all of the things. They've done the research. They know the like nods to the things. You see so many like other bits and parts of movies, and you know he's a horror fan. I would not be so bold to say he's the best director we ever had, like somebody on Twitter did, and he had to come back on Twitter to be like, please don't. But I would say that he's definitely one of my favorites that are alive with us. Like if I were to do a quick 4 or 5 people, directors who are living right now, and I'd be like, Jordan Peele's definitely in there somewhere.
Oh, Peele, Flanagan would be up there too.
A lot of people like Flanagan.
You're not a Flanagan fan, I take it.
I tried.
Yeah, no, I love that. You know what? Like, honestly, that's what makes this community so amazing is the fact if we all felt the exact same way, these conversations would be boring as hell. So I love the fact when I meet somebody that doesn't like things I like, or I met one person one time that liked The Exorcist too, and I was like, that's unfortunate.
What's wrong with that?
I know, that's what I said. I was like, holy shit. Wow. I mean, I don't want to spend the night at your house anymore because I'm afraid of what might happen to me. I mean, I don't want to be your first victim, but there's definitely something going on here if you like that movie.
Right? You can pack that immediately. Like
Right. Talk about red flags. For me, that was like, call my mom. I'm going home. So Sharai, honestly, seriously, I know that we've had fun and we've joked around a lot, but you are someone I look up to. So to be able to do this with you, your horror knowledge is second to none. And you have your own opinion. You are your own person all the time, no matter what. And I love that about you. And I genuinely hope that I get the chance to work with you again in the future. But please don't go anywhere. I have a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, I've already told you this once. Don't make me tell you this again. I have all of Sharai's social media links and her podcast links down here in the description. So make sure you're subscribing to the podcast. Make sure you're following her on social media. Again, not for her, not for me, but for you. You're missing out if you're not doing this. So until the next time, guys, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.